remember when you used to come brief Congress as the director of the NCTC, and I always found you to be a sober, reasonable national security professional. I gotta say, when Joe Biden nominated you to this position, I thought that was one of his better choices. But then I started looking at what you've been up to for the last 4 years, and now I have questions about which Matt Olsen we're getting. 2017, you wrote an op-ed entitled, "The Electoral College is a National Security Threat." I want to repeat that. The Electoral College is a national security threat. Do you still believe that the Electoral College is a national security threat?
Well, Senator, let me begin by thanking you for your initial comments about my time as the National Counterterrorism Center Director. And I spent my better part of my career as a government public servant protecting the country. I left the government in 2014 and entered as the private sector. I wanted to remain engaged on the issues that I thought were important. And as a private citizen, of course, I expressed some views, including that article you're referring to, in a way that I wouldn't and haven't expressed as a public or government servant.
In other words, what he actually was doing is expressing his true feelings as a private citizen, because he knew he couldn't or didn't want to express those feelings when he was in the public sector. So actually what happens is that, as it does with all leftists, all liberals, all Democrats, all progressives, all moderates, all academics basically, is that eventually everything that they really are in essence does eventually bubble out. It does come out eventually.
That view, yes, there are aspects in context, if I may explain, there are aspects of the way in which the Electoral College allowed or could allow nefarious cyber actors to pinpoint their efforts to influence an election. There are ways in which the Electoral College makes us more vulnerable to nefarious, particularly nation-state cyber actors to influence elections. And that was what I was seeking to highlight.
I'm sorry.
That's same old BS, same old garbage, same old crapola that they were trying to feed us right after the 2016 election. Continue with the 2020 election. I mean, unbelievable, folks.
No, of course.
Time is very limited here. So you still think the Electoral College is a national security threat?
I stand by the content of the article that I wrote. Yes.
Should the Department of Justice ever bring a lawsuit to try to force states to, say, adopt the National Popular Voter Compact?
Senator, I'm not familiar with any statutory provisions or proposals along those lines.
Last year, in the middle of riots that caused billions of dollars of damage and had murders spiking at rates not seen in a generation, you described the situation as mostly peaceful protests. Do you think the rioting we saw last year was mostly peaceful protests?
I think that I'm not sure exactly the comment you're referring to, but I
you signed a public letter last June saying that.
Yeah, I will say this, Senator. If I'm confirmed and have the opportunity to lead the National Security Division, the threat that we face from the types of violence that we've seen from the past several years, particularly any type of domestic terrorism, I would be responsible for enforcing our laws and enforcing those laws regardless of ideology and enforcing them fairly and impartially. And that would be my pledge.
You once wrote that ISIS supports Donald Trump. You think that ISIS supported Donald Trump?
I appreciate, again, Senator, the
Unbelievable. This guy actually wrote an article that ISIS supports Donald Trump. What an it's amazing, folks, amazing.
The article you're referring to, again, I as a private citizen, I tried to stay engaged on the national security issues that I had worked on. And I will answer your question directly. The article I wrote was based on statements that I had seen that I was very concerned about from a propaganda standpoint. In 2016, when I wrote that article, ISIS had risen and was using its propaganda machine to influence people in the United States, and they were using the language, the words of then candidate Donald Trump to advance their propaganda machine.
Liar!
And so I was referring to their exact words in making that statement. And I stand by the article. I was concerned about the ways in which ISIS was using those comments to recruit and mobilize people in the United States.
if it's true that ISIS supported Donald Trump, do you think Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi thinks he made a bad bet?
I'm very supportive of the nature in which we prosecuted and the way the Trump administration took the fight to ISIS over the past several years.
Okay. So, Mr. Olson, I'll just say again, I had a lot of respect for the Matt Olson we saw as the NCTC director, but I feel like something has changed.
Folks, like you said before, like Senator Cotton was saying, is that, previously he thought that this gentleman was, a fairly moderate guy, even though he was, a Biden nominee. But he said something's changed. And that's exactly what we're seeing here and exactly what's going on. I mean, first of all, you're saying that the Electoral College is a national security threat. And then you go on to say that the riots, and you're supposed to be in charge of the National Security Division, the NSD, and you're basically out there as a private citizen. When you're making comments as a private citizen, obviously either the statements that you're making are either true and you firmly believe them, or they're false and you're lying about it. So the question is, which one is it? This guy didn't make these statements when he was a public servant, a public official, but when he went to the private sector, he decided that now he's going to go ahead and say and open up his heart. Open up his heart, open up his mind, say exactly what he feels, exactly what he wants to say that he couldn't say before. That's all Senator Cotton is asking him about, is that, look, your views have drastically changed, or not that they've drastically changed, but they've come out in the open now. We didn't know about these things before. To basically say that ISIS is supporting Donald Trump? I mean, that's just the height of, again, of stupidity, idiocy, moronicity. I mean, this guy's a total nincompoop. I mean, unbelievable. And then to say that, the riots, they weren't that bad? Come on, folks. We all know what's going on here. Anyways, we want to thank you. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I was your guest host today. My name is Dr. Shaikh. And if you haven't already done so, we'd certainly appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. Go ahead, hit that notification bell, like and share this video with all of your friends and family and anybody else. And I'll leave you as I always do, folks, and that's with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, oh man, these guys, they're always wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.